see you guys in the dark.
A couple of years ago, I dated this guy named Joey. I had just gotten out of a relationship a few months earlier with a guy because of lack of interest with each other. We had just gotten bored with it. I don't know, when you're 21, you don't make good choices most of the time. Anywho, I met Joey on Facebook, and after 2 days of texting each other, he can basically describe me down to my freaking favorite type of socks. He was always really good at figuring people out. Joey was a bigger guy, the kind of guy you see in movies who start the bar fights. I was drawn in and enjoyed his company. He was like a teddy bear to me, rough on the outside, but sweeter than sweet on the inside. We saw each other for a few weeks, going on dates and having a really great time. I learned that he was a tattoo artist, and he was a divorced dad of 2. He told me his ex was crazy and wouldn't let him see the kids because of the bad breakup. Joey asked me to move in with him on week 4. I was love-struck by how nice he was. He had the best stories and would keep me entertained and distracted even in my worst mood. It was rushed to me, but I was in the moment and I agreed. So a week later, I moved all my things into his house. Joey lived with his mother and father. He took care of them with the money he made as a tattoo artist. His mother had a bad leg and worked at a laundromat under the table, so she would get her government check. Everything seemed great that first week, like I found a guy who really understood my oddness and could make me smile. It wasn't until the second week I started noticing small changes in his attitude. Joey would only go to work when I did. I worked at a grocery store and worked night shifts, so I thought nothing of it at first. He said he was great at his job, and people made appointments to fit his needs so he could work like that. So I never had a moment when I got off work that he wasn't there. He was always there with me. Soon it became a habit at night for him to beg me to lay on his chest and run my fingers through his chest hair. I thought it was sweet at first, until he got upset with me the moment I seemed tired of it. It got to a point where he could make me stay on his chest until he fell asleep. I felt like maybe I had been a bad girlfriend by not wanting to indulge him, so I didn't press the matter. Joey started dropping me off and picking me up from work. He would spend the last 20 minutes of my shift bagging groceries and making conversation with everyone. Everyone loved Joey. He was just so smooth with words, you couldn't help but enjoy the conversations. People thought it was romantic of him to want to be with me. I thought it was nice at first. Then I got aggravated when he downright refused to let me drive myself to work. 3 weeks into our relationship, living together, Joey made it clear he wanted me to delete every picture I had of my ex. Of any boy on my computer. In fact, he wanted me to delete my Facebook altogether. Even delete all the men from my phone and not talk to any of them at all. Most of my friends are male. I've always had a hard time getting along with girls, and the only girl I do hang out with is a butch lesbian. His reasoning was that I love you so much, I don't want you talking to anyone else. Why would you? I felt like this is probably what ruined my last relationship, so I tried it. I kept conversations with males to a very minimum. My only friends who would ever come over were Sarah and Nathan. A week passes, and Joey starts to question my friendship with Sarah. It's become quite clear to him that we are sneaking around his back and making out the 2 minutes we're not in the same room as him. I'm obviously a cheating, lying scumbag for doing so. The fights start at this point. The constant accusations and no trust from him at all. Now at this point, I should have left. Heck, I should have never went in the first place. He was just too smooth about it all. I never had to cook, clean, or anything. When I got off work, he had dinner already made. He had a bowl packed, a movie we'd like to watch, and an ear to hear my problems with. He seemed like such a great guy. I felt ungrateful for feeling like he was trying to keep me locked away. It was a mindfuck. 4 months pass, and my life is a bird stuck in a cage. I never go out anymore. Sarah hardly visits for fear of Joey's eyes. Things don't add up at all. All these things I thought I knew about him start to seem more like a lie every single day. Whenever I get even 5 minutes alone with Joey's mom, I would try to hint at what I was worried about, but she always backed up everything he said. I can't talk to anyone on my phone now. 3 messages or more, and that qualified as a conversation, and that wasn't allowed. I was in fear now. His small threats of dominance loomed over me, hinted at what he would do if I tried to leave him. I was scared to sleep most nights, and ended up staring at his chest moving. Sometimes I would start a fight to see if I could make him not want me anymore. I would scream and cry and just be a bitch to get out of the house, but he always used his words against me, making me feel weak. Something that I've never allowed. I still don't know why I was such a coward to him. Sure, he was twice my size, an ex-MMA fighter, and had a temper, but my mother trained me to be a bitch with a baseball bat under my truck seat. Never be afraid. I couldn't overcome that fear of what if he hurts me. One night, a local band I like is playing at a bar. I asked Joey if we can go, and he astonishingly says he'd love to. We go, and by surprise, a big group of my friends I haven't seen in 4 months had decided to go too. I tried not to make it too obvious that I'm happy to see them. I don't want Joey to push them away. I always stay a bit distant, but try to talk to them as much as possible at the same time. We ended up leaving after only an hour of being there. Joey didn't want me talking to Todd, my old best friend. Even though he was gay, Joey wasn't convinced though. The next day, Todd calls me and asks me to hang out for a couple of hours and see his new apartment. I ask Joey if it's okay. His expression is complete shock. Why would I want to go see a man without him? I can't help but break. Please, let me go see him. Joey looks at me as if I'm pathetic. He says, "You can go, but your shit will be on the porch when you get back." Thank God. If that's the case, I'll take my stuff right now. The look on his face won't leave my mind. He wouldn't let me touch any of my things, and he packs the car for me. I say I'm sorry, and he says, "No, you're not," and slams the door on me. I hear things breaking inside, and I just go. Days later, I have to get my tax refund from his house. His mother called me and told me it was there, and that she wouldn't say I was there if I walked in and got what I needed. She knows what I went through with him. I found out later that Joey had threatened his mother to back up whatever story he told me, that he had hit his wife, and that's why she really left. He never had a job. He never left the house. He took his mother's government check as well. I never saw his face again after I left, but he still sends me messages on Facebook. Always a new profile when I block him, asking me to come back and that he is so sorry. It took me about half a year to get to sleep. I don't know if I could ever see him again without breaking down. He looms over me in my dreams sometimes. I think about what if I didn't get out. Sometimes the right guy can be so wrong. I'm a 16-year-old girl, and this happened to me last year, only a few weeks after I turned 15. For some background, my sister is 3 years older than me, so this took place when she had only been around 18. She had been dating her boyfriend on and off for about 2 years. We'll name him Steven. Just so you know, my parents are divorced, so I lived with my mom, my sister, and my older brother. We had our house renovated instead of moving out when the house got cramped. You see, the layout is that there is a very small bedroom my brother has, a medium bedroom my mom has, and a large bedroom me and my sister shared. Well, as we got older, we obviously wanted our own space, so my mom had a wall built between the large room and the 2 smaller rooms. The only problem was that you'd have to walk through one room to get to the other. At first I had the room that would have to be walked through by my sister, so she was able to get to her room. So, my sister is dating this guy who's the same age as our dad. Stephen also had a daughter the same age as my sister. This guy was a terrible influence on my sister. She stopped going to school, went to raves, and was introduced to drugs and all of that, and all at the hands of her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was very well known in our small village as only a few years back he had a huge drug raid at his old home. He used to also get into a lot of fights, big ones. He almost ended a guy in just a fist fight. He was also well known to be furiously beating his girlfriends. So no surprise, neither of my parents approved of him. This caused my sister to move and live with him in, as ridiculous as it sounds, his tent out in a wooded area. You see, he was living there because he became homeless. So against my mom's better judgment, she invited him to live at our house just so she'd be able to know how her daughter was doing. I'm a very reserved person and shy, especially around people I do not know, and he was very different. Obviously, I had to walk through my room to get to my sister's, and I always assumed my unease and uncomfortableness was due to not knowing him. Fast track a few weeks. By the time my sister turned 17, she found out she was pregnant. She's thrilled, but Stephen is not. My mom was disappointed my sister had gotten pregnant so young, but was happy to support her. One day, my mom finds my sister distraught, and she tells my mom that Stephen wants her to abort the baby and had forced her to take a pill which would start the process. As bad as it sounds, I didn't really zone into whatever was going on. At the time, I didn't realize I was slowly sinking into depression. Fast forward a few months, and my sister and the boyfriend decide to keep the baby. She had a growing belly while my depression worsened. At one point, I decided to try and tell my mom how I felt. She ended up sobbing and blaming herself, which only made me feel absolutely awful. Safe to say, I didn't try to tell her ever again. As the months go by, things start to get a little weird. I'd walk up in the night and find Stephen just sort of standing in my room. As soon as he was caught, he would either rush into my sister's room or out of mine and go downstairs. As uncomfortable as it made me, I didn't bother to bring it up to my mom. We weren't on the best of terms as I'd stopped going to school regularly until I was just not going anymore. The majority of the time, I would just spend in our shower room. Other strange things was the inappropriate comments on what I'd wear. I'm a well-figured girl, even from a young age, so the comments were normal from boys at my school, but it was weird coming from my sister's boyfriend. Not to mention how much older he was. There was one particular item of clothing he had liked for a silk nightgown that was a little above the knee and had a small plunge in the neckline. As you know, I'm a reserved person, so showing my body makes me very uncomfortable. But I liked this night dress because of its softness, so I did wear it a lot, but that was before I noticed his attitude towards it. To start, he simply said, "I like the night dress." I chose to just ignore him, but then he started to say, "I like the way you look in that," or "I like when you wear that." I was creeped out, and just stopped wearing it, wearing anything revealing around him, in fact. I went unbothered by him for a while. Then my sister had the baby, and me and her swapped rooms as mine was slightly bigger than hers. Me and my mom were constantly arguing, well, more of her belittling me and making me feel worse than I already did. So when my nephew was born on my birthday, I spent my birthday alone the whole day, simply crying in my room. I hated living there and wanted to be anywhere else. A few weeks passed, and my mom's and my own anger reached a boiling point, and we exploded into an extremely awful shout match. I still don't know why, but Stephen decided to get involved, and also began to disrespect me. At some point, my sister pulled my mom down the stairs to try and calm her down, and left me upstairs with Stephen. He left my room, and I assumed he went downstairs. I was wrong. He had actually decided to shut my sister's door, come back into my room, and then shut my door. This is where things hit the fan. Stephen completely blows up in my face. This terrifying 6-foot-something muscular man towering over my 5'4" small frame as he shouts things that genuinely left me terrified. It gives me the shacks just recalling it. He screams in my face how if I was his daughter and I was acting like this, then he'd lock me in a room with nothing but a mattress, and I would only receive 1 meal a day. He continued to go on and on about how disgusting and disrespectful I was. I was on the verge of a panic attack. I swear I blacked out for a few seconds out of fear, which caused me to fall into my bed. He was so angry that he was physically holding himself back to not throw a punch at me. I could see it in his face. He wanted to hit me badly. He would pull his arm back as if to throw a punch, but then stop when his fist came close to my face. I thought he was going to beat me black and blue. Like he was yelling in my face that he would. But the most disturbing part of this situation, the one thing that I think he said I won't be able to forget, was when he hissed quietly in my face that I deserved to be beaten, and even worse. After that, he walked out, and I sobbed against my bedroom door, terrified he would come back and keep to that promise. The next morning was a school day, and Stephen decided I needed a wake-up call at 6 a.m. and came into my room, picked me up while I was still asleep, and then dropped me. I woke up terrified and in pain. He then crouched down to be face to face with me and said if I didn't go to school, then he'd do a lot worse than that to me. He went back to my sister in her room, told her what he did, and they both laughed about it while I was crying in the next room. I went to school that day, not even bothering to retrieve my lunch from my mom. Once I was at school, I go straight to my favorite teacher and proceeded to have a complete mental breakdown. I explained what had happened and how I was too afraid to go home. Social services was called along with my mom. My mom told me the minute she found out what happened, she demanded that Stephen take his stuff and leave. After the incident, I was not allowed to go out on my own because Stephen had been threatening to kill me and set our house on fire as well. He had even attacked my older brother who had gotten stitches after having his eyebrows split open. Our house had to have a red alert on it, so if we called the police, they would come straight away. After about a month or so, it went quiet, and we didn't hear from Stephen, and I was glad for that. Then I was informed that Stephen had been arrested. The reason? He had touched one of his old exes, one that lived in the same village as me, and he was being jailed for 8 years minimum. It scared me to think that when he said I deserved to be that way, he wasn't saying it to scare me. So psycho ex-boyfriend of my sister, let's never meet again. This story takes place in, I'd say, 2009 or sometime in 2010. He wasn't actually my ex, but at the time he was in a relationship with my best friend. Things were fine at first. They talked on the phone a lot, as well as us hanging out in one big group pretty often. I was seeing one of his friends at the time, and we weren't really into the hanging out alone stage yet, so mostly we would all hang out together. There are a lot of good memories from that time, but it was around the point that we started to drift off into more alone time and less group time that things started to go bad. For one, the guy always scared me. I'd never admit it, and definitely not to his face, but he was intimidating. A little while after he and my friends started going out, he told me he was going to punch me in the face if I didn't stop looking at him. And ever since then, he'd kind of put the fear and God into me. As much as he scared me, I hated him more. The first time he ever hit her, she called me crying her eyes out. He'd kicked her off into some dresser, and she didn't know what to do about it. But of course, as well as all abusive relationships, that was hardly the end of it. Certain parts of their relationship were good, certain parts were bad, but he always swore up and down he was sorry and he loved her. Somehow, he always managed to talk her into coming back when they did break up. Our other friends and I started to notice bruises all over her. Ones she'd tell us were from play fighting. But if that was really the case, he had to have been getting pretty rough with her nonetheless. When she wanted to go and hang out with the rest of us, he'd hold her down on the ground and refuse to let her leave for hours. Eventually, she'd cave in and stay with him, and he'd definitely let her up. Once when we were all in his house, he punched right through a radio and scared the crap out of all of us. Another night, I had to sit there and watch the two of them nearly get into a fistfight right there on the street. When I think back to all of it, I really wish I would have dropped the ruse of supportive friend and told her flat out that he was scum. My disapproval was always known, but I mostly stayed silent about it. It wasn't like I could change her mind anyway, but I still wish I'd done more. One night, a number I didn't recognize called the house, and I picked up to find that it was him on the other line. He told me she was in the hospital because she accidentally hit her abdomen off his dresser and her spleen burst. The BS excuse and the tone in his voice sold out his lies pretty quick, but I didn't flat out accuse him. But everyone, nurses, doctors, her family, her friends, everyone had their suspicions that it was him who'd done it. I never confronted her, but I still knew. I just figured she'd tell me when she was ready. 6 or so months after the fact, she finally did. They'd been wrestling, and he'd gotten mad, and he shoved her into the dresser. Apparently, she started screaming due to the pain, and he was pretty adamant that she was faking and refused to take her to the hospital until his parents intervened. To this day, he tells everybody it was a lie, and that he never abused her. His family's on his side, but as for me, I know the truth. Because for half of it, I was right there. I know what kind of person he is. I just wish the rest of the world would, too. Today he's got a girlfriend, a baby girl, and another child on the way. While I'm scared for the girlfriend and the kid, I just hope the next one's a boy so he can kick his ass like he deserves. Then again, someone like that should have never had kids in the first place. Before I begin, I must clear a few things. I am a 15-year-old girl, and I have just moved away from a town that was hell to me. And I have an insane, perverted ex that I might have seen yesterday at my local park. Last year, my ex-boyfriend of a year and a half and I broke up before I left. We broke up because he was just too much to handle. Now, some of you might judge and stuff, but I was 14 and he was 16. We met through Facebook and met up for a movie. I was despite, and so was he, so we hit it off right away and started going out from then on. As we continued on dating at first, he was a nice, sweet guy who would do anything to keep a smile on my face. But then he started to turn into a perverted jerk. We would be at his house or mine. Most of the time no one would be around but us. Obviously he got that feeling of excitement and tried to have it with me. I tried to ignore it and not bother with his need. He keeps asking and pushing me to say yes, but I continue to say no. He wouldn't stop till I gave in. Also, during our relationship, I noticed he wasn't a tough guy. He brags about it. He would act like a total girl. And I guess he doesn't know how to be a man. One time we were laying in bed watching movies, and he said, "You wouldn't mind being the man of this relationship?" He asked with a stupid smile. I asked him, "What do you mean?" Obviously, I was confused at this strange question. "Oh, it's just, I want to be the girl of the relationship." I was stunned by his remark. I mean, seriously? A dude asking his girlfriend to be the man in the relationship? Next, what also he did was he would scare me and laugh like he made the funniest joke ever. We were watching The Exorcist, and I guess I was jumpy back then. As the movie ended, he screamed in my face, making me cry like a baby. All he did was laugh and pointing as I was freaking crying, not saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," and hugging me. I was angry for him at it. Another time, we were walking on the side of the road from the store, I think, and I guess we were talking about fighting and stuff. Out of nowhere, he punches my right arm so hard I nearly fell to the ground. I got up and asked why on earth he did that. He just shrugged it off and asks, "Want to feel my hardest now?" I backed away from him and told him nothing. In the middle to the end of our hell relationship, he was so aggressive, controlling and mean. Stole my favorite Nightmare Before Christmas pen that I got from my mom. Told me my art was crap and shoved other people's artwork in my face and said, "This is how you should draw." Annoying my cat to the point she scratches him and then he hits her. Asked me to start a family with him and marry him on the spot. Tell other girls that I would kick their ass when I really was not that skilled. Judged me for who I was and what I wore every single day. When I was having the time of the month, it was a painful one where you wouldn't want to move at all. He came in my room and started arguing with me and making me get up and said I looked like crap. Whenever he would come visit me, he would make messes in my room, kitchen, living room, and bathroom, and not even clean up after himself. Now I am better without him, and after that relationship, I decided to stay single and focus on more important things than that. He just sucked the love interest out of me. I now realize he was a horrible guy with problems and didn't know how to treat a woman. Now I am miles and miles away from him. I thought I was safe and ready to start fresh when yesterday I was skateboarding at the park. And as I was leaving to go home, a tall man with bleached blonde hair wearing a jacket and a navy blue scrubs walking directly at me, staring as we pass each other. I freak out and told my mom about it. She wasn't sure because he wouldn't know where we live or what I look like. I tried to relax and explain to myself he wouldn't know where we live. We told no one our address except for our close family members and friends. I am now freaking out, unable to sleep, waiting for him to break in and say something. In high school, I was awkward and shy. My family said I was a late bloomer since I got my first kiss at 17, completely on accident. And I didn't have my first boyfriend until I was 19. So my boyfriend, we'll call him K, was a boy I knew from high school. We weren't really friends, we just ran in the same group, but we met at a Halloween party a few years after high school, and we just kind of hit it off. At the beginning of our relationship, we spent a lot of time together. Neither of us had jobs, and I wasn't in school, and he was taking a semester off. While I was sending job applications left and right, it didn't bother me that he wouldn't do the same because he worked at a camp during the summer, so he technically had a job. I didn't notice at the time because I was too busy being caught up in the idea of having my first boyfriend, but he was emotionally and mentally abusive. I have this weird thing about feet. I just can't stand them. If someone even just nudges my leg with their bare foot, I flip out. Kay knew this, and one time, by accident, he touched my leg with his foot. He must have thought it was funny because then he proceeded to put his foot really close to my face. I ended up cowering in a corner with a pillow over my face, recovering from a panic attack he had just given me. He didn't realize either. He laughed off the whole thing. Also, I tend to be a little bit gullible, but I hate feeling stupid, and he knew both of these. So in private, he would mention things to me. Little throwaway facts that I wouldn't really think about. Then later, while discussing the same subject with friends, I would bring up the little tidbit he told me, and while my friends would tell me I was wrong, he would lash out. God, how you can be so stupid. Why would you even believe something like that? You are embarrassing to me. This is so dumb. And I would too be embarrassed to admit he told me this. The worst was probably our sex life. Now I won't give too much detail, but he was my first, and way more experienced than I was. The first time it happened, there was a lot of pressuring and begging, and it finally happened when he told me he loved me. Being a young girl who had never had this kind of affection, I accepted it with open arms. He would constantly tell me how bad I was and how terrible it was for him. He didn't consider the fact that he was more experienced than me. He just assumed I wasn't trying. He also told me it annoyed him that I would not make noise and that I would just be quiet. I wish I could tell you I came to my senses and broke it off, but sadly this is not the case. He broke it off with me 2 days before my birthday. We had already agreed to hang out on my birthday, and he kept telling me all day how he missed me and still wanted to be with me. But then a week later, he dropped off the face of the planet. He wouldn't text me back, and he wouldn't answer when I called. I later found out it was because he had a new girlfriend. I wonder if he still would have strung me along if he didn't start dating the new girl. Even though it's 3 years later, and I am happily involved with someone else, Kay, let's not meet again. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.